Hello, checking in with Gulliver's Travels, which I've just read out chapter one. I also have not read out, but I've been reading. I read the introduction to in here and some of the explanatory notes. One of the explanatory notes definitely being, oh, I got some definite flaring up going. One of the explanatory notes being that when Gulliver is talking about how he was a surgeon on a ship going kind of West Indies and stuff like that, that we and just kind of stuff, we should basically take this as this was a slave ship, and that one of the duties of being a surgeon on a slave trip was probably examining the slaves to see, are they worth buying, and then, semi, I guess, keeping them alive during the voyage. But that seems to have been very much a minor thing. So that, yeah, Gulliver Gulliver at the start of this thing is a slave trader, making his money that way, and he doesn't do so good. But then he's like decides to go back on another voyage, and they're off of like Van Diemen's Land when they get caught up in waves, goes in a storm, get driven against rocks. He talks about crew members having died, like 11 crew members having died. That doesn't, we're not actually talking about cargo. I'm assuming there maybe have been a cargo of human beings as well there, that they are not even worth mentioning in a kind of a thing like this. And he washes up on land. Kind of, it's one of these, like, it seems very, very shallow water that he's washed up in, and it takes him, like, he has to walk for it's like a mile or something to get inland, and he finds very kind of soft ground and just kind of lies down and falls asleep. When he wakes up, he's tied down on the ground. He's been pegged down, and he finds that creature's crawling up his leg, and it's a 6-inch tall human being that is there looking at him. And he gives a great roar. They all scurry off. He tries to pull himself out, does manage to get a little bit free. One of his left hand get free. They shoot arrows at him, stick him in his hand, in his face. He decides, okay, I'm gonna stay still. They, through some things, they actually feed him. They feed him, meat, tons and tons of tiny, tiny little meat things, and tiny, tiny little giant, what are to them giant flasks of thing, but which to him are like little, not even like a pints of what seems like a kind of a very kind of light wine, which he drinks, and he talks to somebody who says, like, we're gonna convey you to our great capital over here. The emperor has commanded that you come. And he says, like, well, I'd like my freedom. It's like, no, we're gonna take you as a prisoner. At which point he basically goes like, oh, I'm really tired. And it turns out that they have drugged all that wine, and he falls asleep for the next 8 or 12 hours. And it turns out that the Lilliputans, which these are, I don't think they've been introduced yet, but they're great mechanical geniuses. They make great mechanical engines, and on hearing that he has arrived, the emperor commands that they actually build something which turns out to be 7 feet tall, 3 inches high, which is like just super massive. And they get him on there. They convey him to just outside the city, where there's a giant temple that has been abandoned due to kind of like something of a ghost or something like that. It's it's basically it's considered a kind of a ghost thing. I can't remember what it said. This what do they call it? But it's like an abandoned temple, which they basically chain him to it, and he can crawl inside and sleep inside of it. And there's like everybody's come out of the city to look at him. There's a great number of people. I guess at the beginning, when he was asleep or unconscious, people were climbing on him until they basically made an edict that on pain of death, you're not allowed to do that. And the chains, yeah, and he finds at the end of the chapter, the chains that held my left leg were about 2 yards long and gave me not only the liberty of walking backwards and forwards in a semicircle, but fixed within 4 inches of the gate allowed me to creep in and lie at my full length in the temple. Which I guess it's like, yes, this slaver Gulliver has been chained himself and affixed to this temple. Somewhat comment on maybe on slavery in all of that. I don't know what Swift's ideas about slavery were. Definitely should resist the urge of giving him any liberal ideas. I was listening to someone talking about a modest proposal, which is like his ultra black satire of like, oh, I've got the perfect problem to all these starving children and stuff like that. Let's eat them and make them into ragu and calfskin gloves and stuff like that. He was doing this more as an attack against the rich than he was in support of the poor, the Irish poor, which he said were lazy and thieving and stuff like that. So it's like he's not an easy, I'm a caring guy. He's got some genuinely kind of misanthropic, generally kind of like, he's Irish, but he's Anglo-Irish, which means he sort of despises the underclass, the Catholic Irish, that the majority that live in whose country he lives, and he is a part of the minority ruling class over them. So it's all these little complications that we have to keep in mind when we're reading Gulliver's Travels, and try and keep myself awake to them. And also, yeah, just look for these have explanatory notes in here, so things that go completely over my head, like Gulliver being a slave trader, might have gone over my head. It's like, okay, well, we gonna keep that in mind to start off with. Gulliver, slave trader. All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.